The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for waking up with us. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Alex Fisher.
Now to our Sierra snow melt flooding coverage, and it started just a few hours ago. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers are dramatically reducing the flow in the Kern River. This is to make repairs on a hydroelectric power plant at the base of the main dam at Isabella Lake. Around midnight, the engineers started closing the water gates into the plant, essentially stopping the flow of water. This will allow operators to investigate the source of a mechanical vibration within the plant. Experts say it could take up to 12 hours to restore those river flows to what they were before they shut it off last night.
It's a pivotal week in the Sierra meltdown. Many parts of California are expecting these abnormally high temperatures. And as the snow melts, severe flooding will threaten communities and test levees. NBC's Steve Patterson reports.
California is a climate war zone after suffering through a decades-long megadrought, followed by months of record rainfall and deadly flooding. Now, residents brace for another crisis. The snowpack in the Sierra Mountains that melts in the spring is more than 250% what it normally is. It contains twice as much water as the state's 28 major reservoirs. And as temperatures rise, what goes up must come down.
My anxiety for the next few months is that we'll go into an extended heat wave and the snowpack will start to melt very, very rapidly.
All that water is a problem for Central California's Tulare Basin, where officials warn an estimated 200 miles of farmland could be underwater by July. Across the state, neighborhoods are also at risk.
This makes us nervous. We haven't seen this since ever.
Officials in Stockton, California, with 800,000 residents, have concerns.
We're concerned about how it's going to get routed down through the river system.
Are you worried about the levees holding up?
Absolutely. That's my job.
More than 1,100 miles of levees are in a system that surrounds Stockton. If they were to fail here, one federal study says most of the city would be about 10 to 12 feet underwater.
Huge portions of the levees were built generations ago, now porous and seepage prone with little investment since. The American Society for Civil Engineers gives California's levees a D rating.
What's the solution for those levees?
The solution would be to build them to a stronger extent, but we don't have the money at this stage in our budget.
Now, disadvantaged communities face the biggest threat.
It can get very scary not knowing, is it going to break? Are we going to flood? What's happening?
I'm going to have to trim all these down.
Pandora Crowder lives in a section of Stockton's government housing, rows of homes up against an old levee wall.
It's not fair that those of us who are the most disinvested and the most economically challenged are the last ones to be thought of, because we're almost kind of expendable, right?
Activists say disaster is only a matter of time.
If we have a significant flood event here, and it's not even if, it's when, we're going to experience all the loss of life.
Communities now bracing for the worst amid California's rapidly changing climate. Steve Patterson, NBC News, Stockton, California.
Disney is now taking legal action against Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. The entertainment giant filed a First Amendment lawsuit and has accused the governor of organizing a campaign of government retaliation. The two parties have been fighting since Disney criticized a Florida state law banning classroom instruction about sexual orientation and gender identity in elementary schools. The suit comes as the governor's allies are engaged in an effort to assert control over Disney's Orlando theme parks. In that lawsuit, Disney says it regrets it has come to this.
A federal appeals court rejected Donald Trump's attempt to block former Vice President Mike Pence from testifying before a federal grand jury. The grand jury is looking into allegations that Trump tried to overturn the 2020 election, as well as his role in the January 6th riot. Pence has previously said he would not appeal a judge's order to give testimony in the investigation. The former president can still appeal to the Supreme Court, but has not said if he will.
Bakersfield Congressman and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is at the forefront of a battle in Washington. He won over a group of GOP holdouts to pass a bill to raise the debt limit and slash government spending. It is a major move in the fight to prevent a government default, but lawmakers still have a long ways to go. NBC's Bree Jackson is in Washington this morning with more.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy passing his first major test by a slim margin.
The bill is passed.
Securing just enough votes to press ahead with a bill that raises the debt limit by $1.5 trillion.
No one in America believes there's not one place that you can't find a place that you could have savings in what Washington spends.
The GOP proposal cuts spending in areas that include rolling back unused COVID-19 funds and stopping President Biden's student loan cancellation plan.
What we should pay our bills. We should ensure that we don't hit this crisis.
The bill now heads to the Senate, where top Republicans say they support Speaker McCarthy's efforts.
He's now laid down a reasonable proposal, and time for the White House to negotiate. That's the way a two-party system works.
Democrats, who hold the majority, won't back any bill that includes conditions.
Clean debt ceiling. Clean debt ceiling. That's how it's always been done.
The White House calls the measure reckless and vows the president will veto it.
Happy to meet with McCarthy, but not on whether or not the debt limit gets extended. That's not negotiable.
The Biden administration and Republicans must reach a compromise soon or risk a default. The Treasury Department is taking what it calls extraordinary measures to pay the bills, but warns that funding could run out this summer. The clock is ticking for Congress and the White House to act. In Washington, Bree Jackson, NBC News.
And the trial of Triselle and Jacqueline West is expected to finish ahead of schedule. The trial was originally expected to go until June, but in court yesterday, Judge Charles Bremer said it's highly likely the jury will get the case around May 17th. The couple's accused of murdering their adopted sons, Orrin and Orson West, 3 months before ever reporting them missing in December 2020. And in your 17 follow-up file, a police officer who was nearly killed by a drunk driver last month is back home this morning after being released from the hospital. BNSF Railway Police Officer Bryant Clark was riding his motorcycle on Panama Lane back on April 1st when he was hit by a pickup truck. The driver who hit Clark was arrested on DUI charges. Over the course of the next couple of days, Clark had 4 surgeries and one of his legs had to be amputated. Members of the California Highway Patrol escorted Special Agent Clark home from the hospital. Clark's family says his road to recovery is a long one, and they hope that his story serves as a reminder about the dangers of drunk driving.
5:46 is your time now, and dozens of dogs from the Bakersfield Animal Care Center were slated for transport to Washington State last weekend, but the transporter had to cancel at the very last minute. 17's Marco Torres, though, shows us who stepped up to save the animals.
A transport of 26 dogs was scheduled to go to Washington State last weekend until the trailer had mechanical issues. But Joshua Proctor with the Bakersfield Animal Care Center stepped up and saved their lives.
So right now I'm currently not in Bakersfield. I am actually in Sacramento on my way back from Edmonds, Washington. We could not find another transporter, so I decided to transport them myself. Within just like a couple hours of planning, I was on the road with 26 dogs.
The trip took 5 days, and Proctor's expected to be back in town Wednesday night. Proctor explains the drives take a long time because of all the stops needed along the way. He raised more than $1,000 for the trip from 20 donors to cover fuel costs. And to keep the dogs safe, he slept in the van with them.
Spending 2 days in a vehicle is very, very stressful. So we make sure that we take care of them mentally and make sure they're comfortable at all times. So when you have dogs that are stir crazy on transport, it makes it super hard on us as well.
Proctor and Matthew Buck, the director of the Bakersfield Animal Care Center, says you can make a huge difference by fostering a dog. It's simple and easy. You don't even have to keep the dog for long. Fostering a single dog for 2 weeks to even a month can save dozens of other dog lives.
We provide you with everything you need. The only really requirement from you is to have them exercise time, enrichment time, and provide them a safe environment. Someone like that is perfect. We need fosters for any amount of time, even if it's a day.
Marco Torres, 17 News.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.